Hello and welcome to a very special episode of BaatShaat. Today, Pakistan women's cricket team's ex-coach Mark Coles, he's just resigned from his coaching position of Pakistan women's cricket team. He's joining us today for a special chat. Lucky and I will be asking some questions. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you send us any comments through YouTube so we can actually display them on the screen and ask Mark those questions as well. So while I go get Mark and Lucky added to the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Joy, talk to you shortly. Hello and welcome, Mark.
G'day guys. Nice to be on the show. Thanks very much for having me.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for joining us. All from New Zealand. I think you just traveled back, just got home.
Yeah, I've been home a week now, so it's nice to be home with the family and experience a bit of the New Zealand culture that I've haven't really seen for a couple of years.
No, and just before the show, we were just quickly chatting and catching up with Mark, and one of the questions I had, I'm going to actually start with that, was just how was your experience? We talked briefly, but for the viewers' pleasure, I would love for you to talk more about it. How was your experience living in Pakistan? You were there for 2 years.
Yeah, I was there for just a little over 2 years. Look, it was a great experience. It opened my eyes to coaching in so many ways. The girls, the players were fantastic, and in the latter half, the administration with Singh Khan coming on board recently, has really given it some oomph and some emphasis on women's cricket, which is what was needed. And I think the team's heading in the right direction. And it was just it was time to leave it in a place where I felt that it could move ahead even more without me there.
You felt it was time?
Yeah, I did, because when I first went on board, I'd spoken to my wife Mel and said, look, I think we need to give this a couple of years and see where we're at. These are the goals that I want to try and achieve with this team. First goal was getting better and competing with the good teams, which I think we proved that we did. The second thing was getting them into a position that they could qualify for the next ODI World Cup, which now I think they're fifth, a point behind South Africa.
Cool. They're on the brink.
Yeah, they are, and obviously they've got India to negotiate with. Lucky, I hope you've got your negotiating skills on there. And then what I wanted to do was try and create a position for a player that would be able to play in the Women's Big Bash or Kia Super League, which recently Nida Dar's just been signed by the Sydney Thunder.
That's a good
thing. Yeah, that was great. So that opens the door for us in terms of getting a Pakistani player in front of what is now considered the world's biggest T20 league for women's cricket anyway. And so after all of that, then it came down to, and a lot of people have asked me this, well, why didn't you carry on to the T20 World Cup? And I said, well, it wasn't really about me. That's sort of a win-lose mentality. I wanted to leave it in a place where Pakistan had time to find a new coach, which they've still got 5.5 months to do. And there's a couple of guys in Pakistan that could quite easily take over the role. But I didn't want it to be down to me. I wanted it to be what was best for the players. And I just thought at that particular time, it was time for me to spend some time at home with my family, which I have in total. My wife reminded me the other day, 3 months out of 2 years I've spent in total at home. So
wow.
I've got a whole list of jobs to do now. 2 years of it.
Yeah. Well, the front part, I hope the grass has not grown long enough. You still get your home.
Yeah, I didn't know that the other day, actually.
There you go. That's probably the first thing on there. So, Mark, I'm going to just get started with the regular questions. How was the experience coaching Pakistan women's team?
Yeah, look, I found it really good. I think they were probably, when I first took over, they were down and out. They'd lost every single game at the ODI World Cup. They didn't have a lot of confidence. And then all of a sudden, for the first time ever, there was a Western man walking into their society who was slightly crazy, I guess, in some sort of ways, because people told me before I went, "Are you absolutely crazy or just partly crazy?" Um, so they knew that I was probably a little bit crazy, and then I think it was just about going about getting them to understand that cricket's a game, and not trying to not trying to win, but trying to go through a process and having fun and getting back to being what a team is, and that is you win together, you lose together, you celebrate together, you commiserate together. But whatever you do, it's got to be fun, because, as you two well know, cricket is hard enough at the best of times. Trying to beat the game is impossible to do, and no one's ever done it. Bradman's the closest, obviously.
Yeah. Steve Smith's trying, but let's see how far he goes.
Yeah, and we used him as an example. We used Virat Kohli as an example to say, well, they average late 60s, but they fail 30% of the time. That's the reality of it. They're the best players in the world. They fail 30% of the time every time they go out and bat.
And what a great word to you talk about that.
Yeah. So when you start to accept the fact that you're probably going to fail more than you succeed, then the game the pressure is a little bit less. And the media, particularly in Pakistan, are pretty hard on these girls. They're pretty hard on me. I mean, I had photos posted of myself and my family on Facebook, and all sorts of stuff go on. And they're pretty. They just don't get it. Some of them don't get it at all. There's some great journalists out there in Pakistan, but there are some ones that just don't understand the resources that we have compared with the likes of India, England, and Australia. It's not even close. We're not even in the same road. So that was tough on them as well.
So I'm my Indian friend here, and you talked about the Indian team at one point. Lucky, I'll let you ask a question about India.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. India-Pakistan is always intensified, right? So did you, in your tenure, did you find the same intensity within the women to win the matches?
Yeah, lucky I did. We played them in Kuala Lumpur, and we had a full crowd of 4,000 people there. And Sanamir said to me, I sort of said to her, we're just going to treat this like another game. She said, Mark, this isn't another game. This is war. This is the closest thing you're going to get to war here. And I said, all right. I said, okay. She said, this place will be packed. I said, Sana, there's only 4,000 people that can fit in here. We're in Malaysia. There can't be that many Indians and Pakistanis living in Malaysia. She said, there are. Trust me. Well, there were. That was a fantastic atmosphere. And then India played Bangladesh in the final, and it was full again. So that was my first experience of it. My second experience was the T20 World Cup in the West Indies. And again, we probably had 2,500 people turn up to that, and a really cool atmosphere. We had them turn up in South Africa to support us. A group of Pakistanis turned up in South Africa. And so the Indian-Pakistan clashes, the rivalry, it's fantastic. And I only wish that the two governments could get together, because from what I saw, there's just the friendly banter of two nations going head to head, and it brings everybody together. And the Pakistani girls mixed with the Indian crowd, and vice versa. It was such a good atmosphere, and photos taken and selfies everywhere. And I just thought, from a New Zealand point of view, from a neutral point of view, we're missing out on such a great rivalry. It's like taking Australia and New Zealand away. Just
exactly
wouldn't be the same.
We had this topic in our show always, like India and Pakistan should be on the same page again. The whole world loves it. Like, you said, like in New Zealand, Australia, England, right? Ashes. So there is one rivalry which keeps together, everyone. So we are missing that.
I think we are, and for the sake of it would be great to be able to break the political ice with everything that's going on, and just play some cricket.
Mark, trust me, Lucky and I are trying.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Keep going. Keep fighting the good cause, because it's Great rivalry.
I'm gonna take you back to Pakistan cricket, Mark. When you started, it used to be Pakistan used to put women's coaches on series by series basis. You were probably the first long-term tenured coach where they actually put some stability in the system, and you had a lot of success. I mean, you through you and under you, Pakistan actually started achieving a lot. You brought a lot of professionalism to cricket, women's cricket in Pakistan. How did you find this experience of coaching an international team, be it women's, different than what you had achieved back with Wellington Blazers or all those places?
I guess it was a little different because the girls were professional. We had 15 contracts at that stage, so they were all being paid professionally. But I do think that you've got to treat them as people, and I think that was probably missing a little bit. Previously, they were treated as cricketers. I tried to understand that all 15 of them, or 16, how many ever we had at the camp, they were all different individuals. They all came from different backgrounds, and that's something that you have to understand as a coach. Coaching's just not about winning and losing. It's about understanding your athletes and how to get the best out of them, I think is for me is really important. So because we did have girls that came from a really, really poor background and struggled. And then we had ones that were coming from a background where money wasn't so much of an issue, but we had to treat them all differently. And that's not to say that we had favourites. It's just that we had to understand that people may not be able to make a practice at that particular time because they had things on, and we had to be flexible. So I guess coming from a Western world where cricket's seen as more an upper class game, upper to middle to upper class, you expect people to be on time and to be there and ready to go. And whereas in Pakistan, it was a lot different.
Lucky. So
yeah, Mark, like Salman has already mentioned that you have been there for a while. In your achievement for Pakistan cricket women team, where do you see this team going from here?
Yeah.
I think they're in a really good position to keep pushing these big teams. One of the goals that Singh Khan brought to the table was to be consistently fourth and pushing the top three. And I think that there's some really good players. We mentioned Nida Dar, Alia Riaz, and there's a couple of other really good young cricketers coming through. They're the future. Obviously, Sana's coming near to the end of her career, but there are a couple of other youngsters that are coming through, and now that they've put an emphasis on Under-19 World Cup, which is happening in 2021, we've got a couple of really good young 16, 17-year-olds. Fatma Sana, who we introduced into South Africa, 17. Arub Shah's just going on the Under-23 tour to Sri Lanka. She's 16. Wow. So we've got some really good young cricketers to be able to replace the ones that are probably nearer the end of their career. So I think it's in a strong place, and that's another reason why I felt the time was right now to hand it over to a new voice, as well as obviously the main reason, getting home to my beloved family.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
So it means the base is already built up. They just need to mold up again, right?
I think the key to it, and I left PCB with my thoughts were that they need to be playing more A cricket. So that's that under-25 age group down. That's where they need to be, either going on internal tours or perhaps heading over to Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and playing series against their A team, even South Africa, but places where they can get to and play against A teams and have those girls experience a bit of pressure and what it's like to be playing at that next level.
So, Mark, I have a bit of Pakistani journalism in me, so I'm going to throw something at you. I'll put you on the spot. Where do you see, you talked about PCB, where do you see, do you feel Pakistan cricket or PCB is set up to support the future of women's cricket?
I think it's heading in that direction. And to be honest with you, Najim Sethi was the guy that gave me the opportunity to be able to coach.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in his office 2 years ago, actually, and he said, Mark, I just want you to try and get this team close so we don't get beaten by New Zealand by 8 wickets, 150 runs, or whatever it is. And I remember saying to him, I said, sir, I'm only a cricket coach, I'm not a magician, but I'll give it my best go. And he laughed. He laughed and he said, oh, well, just anything's better than what's been happening. So, I think now even, Mr. Sethi gave us that opportunity to be able to coach, and then obviously things change. But Wasim's come on board, and he's got, because he's been based in England, he understands the emphasis that's been put on women's cricket. And recently, we've seen that the ECB are going to put £50 million into women's cricket over the next 4 or 5 years. So it's a fast-moving train. And Lucky, the Indians have put a lot more budget into women's cricket, paying their players more, they're recognising them, they're playing a lot more tri-series against teams. And it's such a fast-moving train that previously we were probably just ticking boxes. Now I think the emphasis is on a little bit more than ticking boxes. We need to keep moving and getting a ticket onto the train so we can travel with the rest of the countries, because very soon if we don't, then that gap is going to be a bigger and bigger gulf.
Yeah, same. I had that same question related to that. What can Pakistan learn from other nations here when it comes to women's cricket in Pakistan? So it's almost the same that you wanted to say. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is structures, and you need to have a strong domestic competition. You need to have an under-17, an under-19 competition, an A competition, and then leading alongside that is your national teams that are feeding in, or these girls will be feeding into the national team and the A team and the under-19s. But if you don't have a strong domestic structure, then it's just going to fall down. I was a little bit disappointed with our domestic tournament recently. We were sort of stuck on a club ground. The pitches were okay, and it didn't really allow the players the ability to be able to perform because the pitches weren't fantastic. So there were a lot of low scores. I think, as I said to them before I left, I just said I think we need to be better than that. I think we need to give these girls the best possible resources. But to their credit, we've made a really good relationship with Aitchison College, where Imran used to go, and they've hosted us now. They want to be involved, and I think that's where we should have our domestic tournaments. The pitches are great, everything's laid on, the facilities are fantastic, first class, and we can have a decent domestic competition there in the future in Lahore.
So Mark.
So who might be the players to watch out for?
Yeah,
Mark.
Fatma Sana, young, she's just had a taste. We took her to South Africa, had a little bit of success there. She's 17. Aroub Shah is a really good little leg spin bowler. Ramin Shameen is going to be captaining the A team to Sri Lanka. Really nice little off spinner and very much potentially in the mould of Sana. In terms of she bats a little bit, she bowls, she's a great little fielder, and tactically and leadership-wise is becoming a lot more savvy. And then, you've obviously Alia Riaz is just starting to make her way into international cricket. Big, strong girl, hits the ball hard, bowls a little bit, and a really good fielder. So there's 4 or 5 names that are just starting to come into the radar. The issue is, Lucky, that they haven't had a domestic structure. So we've been picking them out of playing for their state bank or ZTBL, going straight into international cricket and coming up against the likes of Bates, Harmanpreet Kaur, and they'd just freeze. Just go, holy heck, what's this?
Yeah.
This isn't, what's going on?
It's another level.
Exactly.
Yeah, another level, and we, a ball that's normally patted back down the wicket to a domestic cricketer is smashed back into the stands, at 1,000,000 miles an hour and going, 105 meters back into the bleachers, and they think, well, this normally doesn't happen to me. So then they don't have an out. They panic and they freeze. So we need to be getting all those structures right.
So, Mark, you were just there. You saw Pakistan cricket take a new spin on the domestic structure, put a new spin on the men's side. How much of that is needed on the women's side?
I think all of it. I think the whole lot. I think it would be great if those 6 teams were mirrored on the women's side. Might take a little bit of time at the moment because the majority of the girls come from either Karachi or Lahore, and that's just the way that it is at the moment. For whatever reason, they haven't explored into the northern areas of Pakistan, where I think there could be some seriously talented cricketers. Diana Beg's played soccer for Pakistan, has now played cricket for Pakistan. So I think there are a lot of girls that haven't been identified in those areas. Once we start to identify girls in those areas, then you'll be able to increase it to 3 teams. But also, I think there's talk about potentially a little PSL team coming on board. Now, that could be, you could play a game and tag it at the end of Bangladesh are coming to Pakistan in the next couple of weeks, so you could have some Bangladesh players playing, a few Pakistani players playing. Scotland Cricket have asked a couple of girls there, I think, from a Pakistani background, have said, look, we're prepared to come and play in the country. And could you get a couple of Irish girls there, Bangladesh, Sri Lankan girls? Then all of a sudden you're starting to have an international flavour to your domestic competitions, which I think is a really good thing, because 2 things: raises the level. Secondly, it tells the world that, hey, Pakistan's safe to come, because we've got a Bangladesh team, a couple of Bangladesh girls, Scottish girls, Irish girls, Sri Lankan girls coming and playing. Hopefully that can happen in the future.
You just said something that piqued my interest, so I'm going to ask you a question. You said Pakistan's safe to come. Sri Lanka chief of cricket just now basically said he was very fed up with the security. You just saw the Pakistan versus Sri Lanka series. You were in Lahore, where the T20 were played. You were basically living in Lahore. How did you find it? I know I asked you at the beginning of the show, but how did you find that whole security arrangement? Because you said there were about 13,000 security officials. How did you find that?
It's well publicised that there were 13,000 security staff. So that includes normal security, police, military, rangers, the whole works that were involved in that series. That's a massive amount of people. Helicopter flying above the ground, making sure that everything's okay. They did not want to take any risks of that tour going wrong. I went and had a coffee with a couple of the guys in the hotel, Grant Bradburn, the fielding coach, and Cliffy Deacon, who's the physio. And, it was a major task getting into the hotel with the roads blocked off.
Wow.
The tour went without a hiccup, and that was great. Hopefully, I think what they are trying to do is say it's safe. You'd like to think over time that security will slowly start to thin out, hopefully. And maybe there's only 7,000 instead of 13,500. I know that Bangladesh women are coming to Pakistan soon, and I think it'll be very similar, presidential security for them as well. So they're taking absolutely no risks at all at the moment.
I think this is how much risk Pakistan avoided. They didn't even try to win the games in Lahore. I mean, it was a very risky.
We were happy for them. What more do they want? I mean, I don't understand. The chief of Sri Lanka's complaining, and yet they won 3-0.
Mark, there was absolutely nothing to lose for the Sri Lanka team.
Yeah.
Great. So I think this is why Lucky and I did a show just not too long ago where he said Pakistan's friendly, but Pakistani team's friendlier. So please do tour Pakistan.
We're the friendliest team in the world at the moment.
Friendliest team? Yeah. You just show up. We'll take care of the games for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Number one doesn't matter. Yeah. So, one of the questions, we're nearing the end of the show. I appreciate you've given us so much time. One of the questions that I have, on the security side, how frustrating would it be for players that are touring to be in that Gunatilaka from Sri Lanka said it's so frustrating to go from hotel to cricket ground and then cricket ground back to the hotel. There's no life. And were you able to experience life outside that norm?
Yeah, I can see his frustrations. I mean, you are hotel bound. You're not allowed out. When the West Indies woman came to Karachi, I was getting a little bit frustrated. So I said to one of the guys that was dressed up in a beautiful suit, but probably I think had a Glock pistol just tucked inside. I said to him, "Look, mate, I'm heading out for a chocolate bar," and well. all hell broke loose, let me tell you. There were people everywhere. And in the end, I just said to him, look, I was just kidding. I just wanted to see how you'd react to that. Well, he was on his little earphone and, one Gora wanting to head out, chocolate bar over, and all of a sudden there were people everywhere. So that was just for the West Indies woman. I thought it was funny. I'm not sure whether he found it that funny, but...
you took your chance.
Yeah, but generally speaking, I mean, we go over the road for a coffee or we go out to one of the malls, but you do have a policeman with you who comes and sits quietly with his AK-47 just watching things go by. You certainly don't sneeze because that can cause issues.
Yeah,
it's the Gora sneezing.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
To add on that experience, like fearful experience, Mark, what do you think like India can do as a neighbor country for cricket, women's cricket in Pakistan? What do you think?
Well, it would be great to play against India, and even if that was in a neutral ground. So if the BCCI and the PCB said, okay, well, you're not coming into our country, we're not going into yours, but can we play in Kuala Lumpur, which is a fantastic facility. They've just hosted some men's teams there. That would be a massive success. You're going to get a crowd, we know that. Great facilities, hotels where the girls are free to walk around and eat food, no problems. And I think it would be a huge success for both teams, because both teams genuinely are friendly. Mitali Raj and Sana Mir, two greats of the women's game, get on really well. On the field, battle. Off the field, great friends. And I think that's the shame of it all. That even in the men, I know that the guys communicate with each other and have a chat and a laugh and whatever else. On the field, yeah. And I just think that that both organisations and governments, in particular governments, are probably missing a trick. And would bring the countries closer together. And if it's the women that start the ball rolling, well, that would be fantastic.
And Mark, the culture is no different.
No.
Yeah, we can't, like from our end, we can't tell an Aussie and a Kiwi apart, and I'm pretty sure you won't be able to tell an Indian and Pakistani apart at times. So
yeah, that's right. And it's the same in New Zealand and Australia. We've got that friendly rivalry, but off the field, we're pretty good mates, and I've got a lot of Australian friends, and we get on really well together. But on the field, yeah, it's a battle, and I've coached in Australia and love coaching in Australia. I found the players to be really receptive, and it's just fantastic. But for whatever reason, the two governments, sometimes you just think these politicians need their heads banged together, and hopefully something would come out, although I doubt very much anything would come out, to be honest.
Yeah, it should be away from politics, that's it.
Yeah. But, I don't know. I just hope that in the future it can happen.
Absolutely.
So what's next for you, Mark, now?
Well, I'm unemployed, Lucky, so I'm free.
We'll keep on catching you up.
Yeah. I've got 2 years of jobs to get through. So maybe in 2 years' time, I'll be employable once I've got through all these jobs that my wife's kindly given me.
You're basically employed, Mark. You're not getting paid for it.
Yeah. So look, I'm obviously looking, and the next wherever that next opportunity is, I hope to get an opportunity to further my skills and everything that I've learned in Pakistan. I can take forward to the next team, whatever that might look like, or whoever that might be.
And to be honest, I think you've achieved a lot.
Well, good luck for that, Mark.
Pakistan cricket's achieved a lot under you. When we go back to the last 2 years, I mean, you're right. There were the easy side that could be thrashed, and now they're actually starting to compete. The players are coming up. You see more of them. They won series in South Africa. They tied with them. They won. I mean, the series you were brought in, we were expecting to be thrashed 3-0. They actually lost only 2-1, which was very big. So in a very quick time, you were able to achieve that as well. So I think, again, all the best to you, Mark. Appreciate you taking the time and sitting down with us. I know it's 2:30 p.m. in back home for you, New Zealand. Quite late for us, 8:30, 7:30. We're luckiest. So
Yeah.
before we let you go, is there anything you want to say to our viewers?
Oh, look, thank you so much for having me on your show. I think what you guys are doing for cricket is really, really great, fantastic. The support of the women's game, which is growing, is wonderful, and it's great to be able to talk to you both. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, the Pakistan women's team can keep inspiring young ladies back in Pakistan to either play cricket or any other sport. And guys like you and the support that you give them is very much appreciated.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for your kind words. I appreciate that.
Shukriya.
Well, yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Is there one question I have you, Mark? Is there one favorite dish that you walked away with from Pakistan?
Oh, chicken biryani.
There you go. I knew it was going to be biryani.
Chicken biryani, it's got to be. Chicken biryani and some naan.
You can.
Anytime.
You can be. I hope you find that in New Zealand now. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Mark. Okay, thanks and
take care.
Have a good time. Bye, Mark.
Thank you. God bless. See you later. Bye.
Bye.